I'm so grateful to have the relationship that I do with the LCS. And I had something happen 2 weeks ago that I would like to talk to you about. But, I sit in my world and I go out with consciousness into another world to give information to other people. And I love what I do. But something happened where I was excited about going out and visiting a friend. And what happened was I basically didn't have an awareness about what was going to happen to me. So I always look at these lessons, I think about because I welcome how the LCS teaches me things, and I love the fact that you've been into the relationship conversation today. And this group today with all the questions have been so wonderful. But I need some context around what happened for me. So I was going to meet a girlfriend for lunch, and I basically parked the car, and I felt a shift that happened when I parked the car. And I thought, this is really weird. I don't feel like I'm in the Ralph's parking lot. And I just sort of like shook it off and I started walking. I was going to a restaurant that is in a farmer's market area. And I'm usually never there after 10 o'clock in the morning because I get up early and I go places. But that morning, I was meeting my girlfriend at a restaurant in that area. And I started to walk across the street, and something happened inside of me where I was shifting. And I went, oh my God, I'm feeling like I'm in Beirut. And I've never been to Beirut. So I'm walking along the pathway to the restaurant, and there are energies and people, and it's merged, and it's angry, and it's upsetting, and I don't understand what's happening. I go walk into the restaurant, and the cacophony of voices made me start to have what most people would consider a panic attack. And I was calling my girlfriend to say, I don't know what's happening, but I can't handle what's happening here. I just kept looking for places to get out of the restaurant. I know the restaurant owners, so I kept thinking, do I need to leave and go in the back? Do I need to talk to the owner and ask her if she has security? I literally had to get out of there. And my girlfriend was not really amicable to my suggestions about meeting someplace else. But I walked back to the car, Tom, and I was on the verge of vomiting. So I had a shift like out of my own reality. And I'd love for you to give me some suggestions or what you think about that.
Okay. Typically, now they can happen for various reasons, like everything. The world is not so simple as to say, oh, well, it was this. There's lots of different ways, but the typical way and the usual way that that works is that just as you pulled your car up, for some reason, I don't know what you were listening to the radio or something you'd seen the day before or whatever, but something brought up to your mind the problems, in the Middle East, the problems, that are going on. And just because those are problems that are around in our world, they're in the news, they're places, and your mind kind of put out a query and said, gee, I wonder what it's like to be in those places. It must be awful. And you asked the question. Bingo, you got a reply. The system showed you what it was like to be in that situation and what did it feel like. That's typically the way it is. You actually asked the question, not on purpose, but the thought just drifted through your mind. Oh, this is a nice day and the sun's shining here and everything is so calm. Isn't this peaceful? Gee, I wonder what it's like for those poor people in this really stressed place. And when you think that, that's a query that you didn't intend to make, but it was made, and now you get the answer, which is to experience what it's like to be there. You get the feelings, you see the action, you see the people, and this happens a lot to people when they are visiting, the Roman ruins and the aqueduct that is now 2,000 years old. And they go out to the aqueduct and they're looking around and they say, gee, I wonder what it was like when this was actually being built. And then suddenly they're transported to that world. They feel the feelings. They see the people building it. They connect with certain individuals and kind of see it through their mind and their feelings. And it's like they're there. And then that takes a little bit of time. And then they come out of it and, oh, they're back in the 21st century. And it's just now a big field with this stonework going across it. But they have these experiences, or people walking around in a museum and they see a mummy and they think, oh, what was it like in those times? You know, with this person who was mummified, what did they live through? And it's just a casual thought. And then suddenly the experience comes. You are that person and you're living, you know, in Egypt in 5000 BC or something like that. That's the typical reason why people have these. They make a query that they don't know they're making. It's just a stray thought running through their mind. And because they're connected and intuitive, that connection makes a connection to the database, and the database gives you a data dump of exactly what you asked for. What is it like to be there? And you can do that on purpose. It doesn't have to be a casual thing. You can go to these places, go to the museum, and it's easy. You walk around and you can put your place in the person that was wearing that ring that's on display. And it's easy enough to do if you're an intuitive person. But sometimes you do it without being aware that you're doing it. And that idea floats through your head, and there you go. And it takes you, you're actually transported there. You get what you ask for. You don't want it. You didn't ask for it on purpose, but stray thoughts can do that. And I know you probably can do that, you know, easily on purpose. You can go to a historical site or a graveyard or a museum, and you can tap into all of that because you know how to get data out of the database, because that's what you do, is get data out of the database. But it can happen without you actually trying to do it, just a stray thought. And that's probably what happened to you.
Well, I agree with you, and I am pretty conscientious of at least knowing what I'm getting myself into, right? When I worked for law enforcement and going to various murder sites, and I love a great graveyard. Don't put me in a battlefield, but I love a great graveyard. But this was, and I am wondering about the setup, because I think that that's the key here. You reference just the idea of it. And I'd been working with a couple of clients who had been stalked. So I'd been discussing things with them. Maybe that's another one of those aspects.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this was a street that I know of in town, and well, you hit it, you know, it is the suggestion. I didn't want to feel what it would be like. Of course, I wasn't interested in that, and I wasn't working a law enforcement case, but I didn't want to put it into a precognitive dynamic. So I'm glad to hear that it was just a thought. And boy, we all need to be very careful about the thoughts that are floating through our brain, especially when we're working with you, right?
Yes, you have to be careful. That's part of the process that you learn when you get into this business or learn to meditate. You're learning discipline with your mind. The disciplined mind is necessary. You can't do what you do if you don't have a certain amount of discipline with your mind. You can go to a particular mental state whenever you want to, and it only takes you tenths of seconds to get there. And that's discipline. That's the things you learn. In your case, you learned all that because you were escaping from a very dysfunctional world. So you learned to jump into other worlds and be there and come back when you had to. And those were, so you learned those skills, and then later you used them for reasons other than to escape. But yes, disciplined mind is very important, because some of those, when you ask, what was it like to, if that is the way your thought ran, then you actually experience what it was like to be there. And that's the emotional experience, the fear, the threat that's impending all around you. I mean, when you say, what is it like to be there? It's not just looking like you're remote viewing. It's being there, and you get all of it, the feelings, the fears, the tension, all of that comes, and you feel your life is in danger at any minute, and you don't know what to do. And here you are sitting in a restaurant with somebody, and you're feeling for your life because this is a war zone, and you're in the middle of it, and it's terribly uncomfortable and threatening, and so on. So it all comes with it. It's not just a picture, like you're looking at a picture, but you're living it, and it's overwhelming. Because it's not like you're in a theater watching a movie, it's you're in the movie. You're a character in that movie, and it can be very unsettling and frightening and wonder, where did that come from? But that's because your mind sometimes relaxes and has stray thoughts, and because you're a person that can turn those stray thoughts into reality very easily, bingo, you have that experience.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad I asked this because I think that on a bigger scale, all of us thinking about these things and people wanting to experience the paranormal, which, I'm trying to make as normal as possible for myself. But this was a very unique thing, and I appreciate your tutelage on it. Thank you. Be careful out there, people.
Love is the answer. If there's one way to discover this truth that Tom Campbell, physicist and consciousness expert, has concluded, it is through your own experience. Give yourself the gift of experiencing yourself. After all, Tom has stated so many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So learn to experience with Tom's Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program, and unlock those natural abilities for yourself. Discover why love is the answer. Binaural beats included to assist you. Details are in the description below. Thank you.